the world really is at everyone's fingertips at this moment in time. And, gradually education is moving in the direction of supporting that, but it's almost like we're all kicking and screaming trying to get there, right? Yes, no, babies should not have screen time. I get that. The American Academy of Pediatrics will tell you that. But I think it's incredible that my kids could go online and that I can go online. I can ask.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks Series brought to you by AKFI, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And by the way, the full spelling for AKFI is Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute. And I'm the co-host of today's talk series, Isabella, here with another co-host, Manuel, and our awesome guest today, Joanne. Hi, Joanne.
Hello.
Hello, Joanne.
Good to see you both.
Awesome.
Thank
Just a
you.
very quick intro about Joanne. Is currently the director of social impact programs at eCornell, where she develops international initiatives that address community needs and complement the CSR aims of the school and the business. Thank you so much, Joanne, for taking the time here joining us. Usually we start with a very I would say the question you can improvise a lot based on your angle and perspective, relatively broad, in terms of what are your thoughts on the current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation trends and emerging, perspectives in the education field.
I think, my perspective is a little bit unique because I come from a background in rural communities and leading nonprofits, particularly in rural communities. So my perspective is one that focuses a lot on organizations and communities with very limited resources, and I think that's sort of the point, right? You have all of these really big organizations that are interested in sustainability, and I think for the first time are really connecting that social element to it. And I think it's one thing to think very clinically and very scientifically about things like carbon footprint and energy use and emissions and digital transformation in the context of a large corporation. But then when you think about things like environmental justice and basic community level education, I think that's sort of where the rubber meets the road. And I think what I'm really excited about is that I'm kind of seeing that come around where organizations are finally connecting their sustainability initiatives with the good that they can do in the world more broadly. And they're also starting to focus on those organizations and communities that are not well resourced for the first time. And so that's always where my heart has lived, and it's exciting to me. From an educational perspective, I think we have a real opportunity to bridge that gap. I just finished the climate change leadership course at eCornell, and it sort of filled in the gaps of all of those scientific pieces that were missing for me. I know the issues that, equity issues, environmental issues, and health equity issues that affect individuals. And that course sort of was able to help me connect that with the broader issues and how organizations might get involved in helping solve those challenges. So it's exciting to see that come to bear. I'm hoping that and I think that a lot of the organizations that are doing this right now aren't doing it just because it's a thing to do, right? I think there's this danger in social impact that we do things because they're popular and because the consumer likes them, gives you a good reputation as a corporation. I don't sense that's the case with this. I think a lot of leadership right now is really interested in doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. And that I think is also a really great trend.
And first thing, I definitely second what you're saying. And actually, I also see from the sustainability classes I instruct that there is a really desire to learn about sustainability is not only a fad, is not only a marketing ploy to gain more market traction or market share. And I'll follow up with a question because I know that you are the director of the Impact Center at eCornell. And could you give us a little bit more about the activities that you foster there? Because I think they are directly connected to what you said previously about the trends in education.
Sure. So our model is one that has education at the center of it, but we recognize that we're going to do meaningful work and truly impactful work. We have to engage multiple partners in that. Keep it simple by streamlining the delivery of education to as many people as possible and making that relatively affordable so we can maximize impact. But then make a connection with two primary partners. The first is the NGO, the nonprofit or governmental agency, nationally, internationally, that is doing this work on the ground. They understand fundamentally what the community needs. They understand the audience. And we can adapt our programs, not just the types of education that we deliver, not just the content, but also the structure of what that education might look like. So that's the sort of one primary partner. The second primary partner that's just as important is a funder. And oftentimes the funder is a corporation, it's a corporate foundation, it might be a private foundation or even a government grant. But the funder plays a significant role, not just in saying, yes, we prioritize this and we want to support this work, but philanthropy now is different from it was when I started in nonprofit work 20 years ago, in that funders and philanthropists really want to be engaged in the work. They don't just want to say, here's my $1 million, go do with it what you want to do with it. They want to work dynamically with the partners at the table to say, this is really what we want to do, and this is our purpose, and this is the geography and the demography that we care about. These are the topics that we care about, and funders are getting engaged on a really grassroots, organic level, which is the best kind of philanthropy. I love that kind of philanthropy. It's a strategic philanthropy, and it's the kind of philanthropy that not only creates broad impact, but it also generates really compelling stories about how we're affecting people's lives day to day. So there are really three partners. What that does is it allows us to do what we do best at eCornell, and that is to just deliver education. And we're good at it. But we need all of those other partners to help us because they're good at what they do too.
That's excellent. And actually, just to reinforce what you said, I just picked up some news just before we started our conversation about Patagonia. And I see you smiling, so I'll let you break the news.
Yeah, Patagonia donated, the owner of the company donated, from what I understand, his entire company into a trust. And the headline today, I think it was New York Times, said he was no longer a billionaire, which I'm not sure if you can measure the value of doing something like that. I think one thing that's so cool about the world we're living in right now too is philanthropy is so creative. There's so many, there's venture capital, there's all these social ventures that are happening, and lots of large nonprofits are getting that funding. You see people like Mackenzie Scott taking, 20, 30, $50 million and investing it into, an organization or organizations that really have fought and scrapped and really deserve it. So, philanthropy really has the power to change the world, and I think it's finally at the place where that's maturing in the United States in particular, and really around the world. And it really warms my heart. It's really exciting. But wow, I mean, what an incredible gesture with Patagonia. I mean,
yeah, it's it's definitely the top of the list as far as I can say. But I want also to bring a point, because many times executives look at sustainability as a non-profitable business, and philanthropy tends to convey the same kind of message. Really, it's about donations, it's about giving money, but you cannot make money with sustainability. And I think this is fundamentally changing now. as executives, as you mentioned in our programs at eCornell and different other institutions like the universities, I shall say. We teach also how to make sustainable or sustainability and ESG a filter for positive profitability of the company. So maybe it's part of strategy. Maybe it doesn't return the investment in 3 months as many finance industry participants expect. But definitely it bridges not only philanthropy with donations from the companies, but individuals versus companies, I shall say, but also it bridges sustainability with profitability.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think I have a perfect example of this. I 10 years ago, I was working in a fundraising office for a small community hospital. It's one of the only existing privately owned community, or individually owned, I should say, not part of a system, community hospitals in the country. And part of that is because we had a really robust philanthropic arm of the organization. And I was really lucky to be able to work on a biomass boiler project. I helped secure the funding, a government grant here in Pennsylvania to do that. And I learned so much about sustainability during that process because it was a wood chip boiler. We had been burning oil for many years. Prior to that was coal. Coal historically is in Pennsylvania. And so we moved to this biomass boiler where it was sort of self-sustaining, where we decided it could do both wood chips as well as we had a converter to switch to natural gas. And the wood chips were great because we live in an agricultural community. So they would burn the wood chips and then they would give away, end to end. It was just a sustainable model. What's challenging for an organization like that, though, is at the time, wood chips was the cheapest option. That's not the case anymore. I don't know if you know about fracking in Pennsylvania, but natural gas has become much less expensive than really virtually any other, except for geothermal or solar here. And so profitability is something that is never stagnant, right? It's always dynamic. It's always changing. And even if it's something is saving you money right now, even a year from now, that might not be the case. And I think that's a challenge for homeowners who are looking to implement, natural gas versus, heating oil or solar might be very expensive to implement. Geothermal, certainly. But I think with education, what's changing is that people understand the value of doing that beyond the dollar. And frankly, consumers expect it, right? The young consumers, educated consumers, people who are younger than me, kids, people my children's age, expect companies. They just take it for granted. They want companies to be responsible. But more than that, digital transformation does offer the opportunity for organizations to save money. Now, the challenge is that often requires a significant investment up front. But I remember early in my career, I was doing some consulting, and I was talking to a school district, our local school district, and I said to them, if you move to 1-to-1, right, we start doing tablets or laptops for students, you can save $750,000 in printing costs. And it took almost 10 years for them to realize the benefit of that. Of course, there are equity issues related to that. Without broadband in rural central Pennsylvania, that's a problem. But they've now moved to 1-to-1. And it probably has saved them some cost over time, but you have to have that initial investment, not just of money, but also of resources. Also, change management is hard in organizations. That is now, telling somebody they're going to have to, they can never print anything ever again. And that's a really simplistic, but it can be a real challenge for the workforce, for sure.
You're bringing such hands-on experience, but I don't want to, have the whole discussion. I would like definitely Isabella to join in, and she just published an ebook together with a printed book very, very recently. But I'm sure that what you said also conveys the idea that you can have a library at your fingertips, and you cannot carry all these manuals. I remember carrying physical manuals to the school, and they are heavy.
For sure. And I have this argument all the time, right? Right before we started recording, we were talking about I have a little bit of a background in early childhood education, and I'm an early childhood trauma trainer. In my spare time, I've done work on the inside with, prison education is something that's I'm really passionate about. And we say all the time right now with kids, there's this big scuttlebutt about, well, when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to have a calculator in a classroom, or, we had to know all the states and capitals, and we had to sign, learn how to sign our name in cursive. We get, and I know this is the age old, this is the way we've always done it. But I think oftentimes we neglect that the world really is at everyone's fingertips at this moment in time. And, gradually education is moving in the direction of supporting that, but it's almost like we're all kicking and screaming trying to get there, right? Yes, no, babies should not have screen time. I get that. The American Academy of Pediatrics will tell you that. But I think it's incredible that my kids could go online and that I can go online. I can ask Alexa in my kitchen, what the weather is going to be in Philadelphia on Saturday, because I'm going to visit, I'm doing the dishes, and, there are disadvantages to doing all that multitasking. But I mean, it's just, when you think about it, how incredible the world is. That, I mean, when I went to college with a word processor, and 3 months later I had email and it was obsolete. So it's hard to imagine how we can totally maximize the benefits of digital transformation and the information that's out there. It's just mind-boggling.
I highly recommend to look at The Digital Mind of Tomorrow, the title of Isabella's book, because she's exactly talking about these topics, how our minds will have to change, not so much the technology. And she has a number of questions. More, she's very inquisitive and questions, where this change, how this change, when this change will happen. So, Isabella, please.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about everything Joanne has said, almost like a third voice besides me, myself, and people I've been talking to. And here's another source, just to give me another feedback of your expectation, understanding, and how willing you are, in a tap into this future world. You definitely brought up a great point. It's more often it's the time that and effort we spend on nurturing the mentality. At the end, we need to understand what we're doing this for. And the younger generations are not just doing this for profits, for money. It's more for a purpose. And I don't know how old your kids are, if I may ask, because I can hear you, Joanne. Is mine or is yours?
Yeah, no, I'm good. My oldest is 22, so he just graduated from college. And interestingly enough, he's a media studies and production graduate. And my youngest just started college. He's 18. So they're burgeoning adults.
Wow, you look too young for two adults. Kids. I was expecting actually somewhere in teenage years. Yeah. Wow. So you definitely has the fresh outlook of how these Gen Z, I think they're Gen Z, right? Gen Z look at the world. I know, and it's just hard to understand and comprehend from even me as a millennial. I'm a millennial, born through the industrial age transformation. It's just a very different world to look at and to adjust. But for them, it's native. Like you mentioned, they assume this has to be a green product. They assume you're supposed to tap your finger to figure things out. They assume you don't need to memorize 5,000 words to move on to the next stage of your career. So it's a very, very tough and confusing transition in general. You pretty much talks about the education revolution, in my opinion, how to really reconsider how we educate the kids and how to rethink the model of living in a digital life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's everything from, and we're seeing this come to bear as well with workforce development. I think everybody is perplexed right now as we move into this uncertain age of work from home, and more an IT, a tech need unlike anything we've ever seen before. I think what I'm seeing in social impact is companies who are very interested in supporting non-traditional groups of people, audiences, and moving into the workforce in IT very quickly. So things like micro credentials are incredibly popular. They're being talked about every single day in this context, and that's what we do at eCornell. So that's, I feel like very fortunate that I'm able to do this work, and especially to bring it to underserved audiences and geographies and individuals. But I think just the conversation about education in this era more broadly, right? When I went to school 25 years ago, when I went to college, liberal arts, that was, I was a first generation college student, came from a coal town in Pennsylvania. I knew I was going to go to a liberal arts school, and I was going to go to a 4-year school, and I was going to live there. It was a foregone conclusion. We've had to let go of that notion, that is appropriate for certain students, and certain students need and want that. But there's so many more career pathway options now for people. But I think as adults, the thing that we have to get better at is helping students navigate that without judgment. Students, young people, and we have information being thrown at us all the time. And that is the one downside, I think, to the digital age and information being at our fingertips. And I think one of our jobs as parents, as humans, as leaders, as mentors, is to help kids figure out what all that means and how to prioritize what we read, what we see, what we watch. It's hard to do, right? I mean, we talk about the YouTube rabbit hole all the time in my house. My husband has now found the YouTube rabbit hole, I'm like, what are you watching? He's like, I don't know. I just ended up on this video, and it's a 30-minute video about, how to trim cat claws or something. And, it's just like, but I do think that this day and age, kids, sometimes students, young adults, feel really paralyzed and pressured in a way differently than we did, and even the generation after us. And we don't necessarily know how to navigate that. So I don't know what the right answer is, but it is, I think, as we're saying, well, the way it used to work, honestly, to a lot of degrees, that doesn't matter anymore, because it's something. What my kids are seeing is nothing like what I navigated when I was their age. And so I have to trust them. I have to let them make mistakes, but I also have to be in a position to educate myself so that I can guide them through that. And we are in uncharted waters in a lot of different ways, and how quickly things move now. There's just no comparison to that. I mean, it's really pretty incredible.
You definitely described the parallel path of transformations, right? We have sustainability. Pardon me. We have ESG, which is part of sustainability. We have digitalization or digital transformation. We have social transformations, which I would invite you to talk on the next opportunity, because that's a whole topic on itself, is how the society is impacted, how the individual is impacted. We mentioned Isabella's book as one of the books looking, peering into the future and trying to understand how this will impact the individual and the society. So I think we need to save a little bit for the next interview, because we probably can keep going on for a long time. But back to you, Isabel.
Thank you, Joanne. I didn't know how this conversation switched from ESG to this whole, humanity, social kind of talk. But personally, I love it because that's what I'm really passionate about. And I think it's critical in the coming time. It's not just about a single perspective. One of the psychologists I interviewed, he mentioned we're going through, not to exaggerate, probably 50 fundamental transformation at the same time. So this has been, well, he's probably a little bit exaggerating, but that's the way he's trying to emphasize, how crazy the world is shifting. So I really enjoyed this discussion with different guests. Just brainstorm. We don't have answer. And I've talked to dozens of leaders, experts, futurists, and the common conclusion, the only conclusion we can reach to is there's no answer. And the only way it's through discussion by asking the right question and to really think about it together, collectively. Hopefully we can navigate something out. So I really appreciate the time here, Joanne. And
I may add something. Definitely is no answer, but it's not a topic for a single science, a single domain, a single course, a single degree. We pass that. On one hand, we talk about micro degrees and micro credits, but on the other hand, we talk about continuous education. We have to embrace the change or step aside, and the step aside is not good. It's not good socially. It's not good economically. It hurts people. Actually, it hurts societies if they step aside from this transformation train. I'll be happy with 5 transformations, not 50, Isabella. But
it feels like 50 transformations, doesn't it? But I think the key piece is that environmental social governance, social is the center of it, right? So we talk about humanitarian, and really, if we're not here for one another, and if we're not here to make the world better for ourselves and each other and our children, then why are we here? At the end of the day, I mean, I think companies and all organizations, not just big companies, need to think about keeping social at the center of what they do all the time, every day. Because if you do that, you will never go wrong. You will be profitable. You will do the right thing. Keep people at the center of your work. And I think you will be successful, period.
We need more and more people like Joanne and more voice like this to be heard.
We'll have her back anyways, but
Love
I
it.
think
So if you have to give some advice, you've definitely, hinted here and there a lot already across the conversation. If you have any advice that you want to give out today as a key takeaways, what would it be for those people, for us to navigate to in the future?
I think one is that we all play a part. There is a role for everyone at every level, right? But I think number 2, what that requires is for us to give each other grace through this process. None of us are going to do everything right all the time, right? That includes big companies of CEOs of companies, and that includes celebrities and everybody else. I think when we're living in this world of ESG and inclusion and diversity, I think you have to listen, and you have to be willing to engage in change and engage in that transformation in a meaningful way, and just recognize and respect each other, and know that the custodian in your company, the assistants, hourly team is just as important as your senior management, and just as important as your neighbor next door. And I think if we can recognize that humanity in each other, we're all going to be better for it.
I hope you didn't say that just for the sake of my book, Joanne.
I did not. I didn't even read your book, but now I'm going to.
I really appreciate such a humane, advice, and I can't adore it anymore. Sorry, Emmanuel, if you need to chip in something, because I just can't wait to share, my gratitude. Emmanuel, you have something to add, or?
Well, I have so much to add. I was just thinking actually about Joanne just said about the takeaways, and that reminded me about our previous videos, Kit own, I mentioned before as well. And Kit talked actually about transformation. It's in the middle of the company. We all think the top will, and he said no. he's a hands-on. He has his own books about people, interestingly, called about people, planet, and profits, or planet, people, and profits. But he works in the field. And in the field, these companies, he found out that the middle management is the engine that drives the transformation. Yes, executives can do their walk and talk. They can, bring together the troops, but it's not going to happen until the middle moves. And it's exactly what you said, Joanne. That's the big force that will promote the transformation or transformations. And we talked between 1 to 5 to 50 today.
That's right. That's right. There's at least 50. I think there might be 100. I'm not sure.
That's not how you define, right? What level of transformation?
That's right. That's right.
So let's save some for the next
Thank
talk,
you.
Isabella. I'll turn back to you.
Thank you. Love it. Love it. Once again, Joanne, thank you very much for taking the time being here, sharing with the audience. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, full of reflections on the fundamental level, not just what we can improve on the surface. So thank you. And of course, thank you to all of our audience for tuning in today. Make sure joining us every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talks Series, where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until the next week, goodbye from now, Isabella, Manuel, and our guest, Joanne. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You.